Hi everyone, thank you for coming, and everyone who is watching on streaming if that is actually happening for this sesh. My name's Laura Rothwell. I'm the founder of a cultural marketing agency called Crystallised. I am a white cisgendered woman with dark hair and a sparkly dress to bring some razzle dazzle. And yesterday a taxi driver told me I looked tired, and I am tired. So that's. I'll hand over to the panel just to introduce themselves before we kick off. Julia, do you want to go?
Oh, okay. Hi, I'm Julia. I'm the head of communications at Home in Manchester. I am a white cisgendered female with blonde hair. I'm wearing an apple print dress. I think they're apples. And is that the end? Great.
Hello, I'm Stuart Terry. I'm a Director of Marketing Communications from Broadway Cinema. I am bog standard, middle-aged, bald white man, and I am wearing a lovely green shirt done up with the buttons up to the top and some cords.
Thank you.
I'm Carmen Slijpen. I'm Creative Director and Head of Programming at Depot Cinema in Lewes, just north of Brighton. I'm a white woman, 57, let's turn it, 57-year-old. If I suddenly strip off, that means I've got a hot flush, so ignore it. I've got bright pink trousers on, pink shoes, and a beige woolly top.
Thank you. So, do submit your questions or comments or anything using the QR code. We're talking about climate, which is obviously a huge subject, but each of these people on the panel are in venues that are kind of on their own journey at different points in their climate and sustainability activities. But just before we kick off, just like a quick show of hands of who has implemented or is in the process of implementing climate positive activities in their venues or at work. Okay, cool. Shall we start off, Julia, if you don't mind,
Sure.
talking about your website/digital journey?
Yes. Yeah. So I joined Home in February, so I'm not going to take all the credit for this. A long process went into launching a new website. So I joined in February, but the website launched in August. But prior to that was a good 18 months to a year of activity beforehand. And I wanted to talk about it here because I think digital sustainability is something that's often overlooked. We all know the importance of not using single-use plastics and not printing things, but how often do we think about how much carbon we use to send emails or live stream, or how much data is being processed on our website? So just wanted to start with a very quick fact that in 2018, Netflix was responsible for the emission of 300 million tonnes of carbon, which is the same amount that Spain produces in an entire year. So just because something's online or it's digitally streamed does not automatically make it greener. So I just thought it'd be useful to just try and talk about a few things around websites that you might want to consider if you're at the beginning of your digital journey or you're partway through, or just something to maybe think about reviewing. So if you think about the number of people that are using your website every month, for Home that's around 40 to 50,000 people, which is a lot of people using the website. And if all of those people can't find the page that they're trying to find, and they've spent 2 minutes and they've clicked on 37 pages before they've booked that ticket to the thing they're looking for, all of that is contributing to their carbon footprint and the carbon footprint of your organisation. So when we looked at launching a new website, we did a full audit, starting with a content strategy overview. So thinking about what it is on our website that people want to find, are they able to find the pages that they want to get to? And we created with our web developers a usage map. Anyone who's done any web development work will be really familiar with that. It's sort of a skeleton of all the key things on your website. But it helps you really think about what are the key places on your site. The other thing that we did was a content audit, which is sort of a way of looking at everything that you're storing on your website and deciding whether it all needs to be there. We have something like 37,500 images and videos in the back end of Home's website. That's still there. So even though we've done this work, we've still got all those images in an archive. So although that's not public facing, it is contributing to the data processing of the website. So it's really important to think about the content that you're uploading. Is it necessary? Is it the best piece of content that's going to achieve that goal for yourself? Is it, can it be smaller? Does it need to be a full-size video? Could it be a YouTube link? Does it need to be a high-res image? Could it be a thumbnail? All of those things contribute to the overall sustainability of the site. And I'm not going to keep talking forever about this because I could do a whole session just on content or on new websites. But the other thing that's really important is around the SEO of your website. If it's efficient and if people can find things from a Google search or other search engines, then that significantly reduces the digital footprint of your website. About 65 to 70% of people arrive on websites after a search on Google or other platforms. So if your SEO of your website is working really well, they'll find that page straight away, and it all helps to just keep reducing the amount of time that people need to spend on the internet.
Excellent. I think there's a website where you can check how green your own website is. It's called Website Carbon, and you can put the URL of your organisational website in there, and it will tell you how green your site is and some things that you could do to make it greener. Earlier on today I checked my own agency website and it was fine. Then I had a quick check of Greenpeace's just to check, and they are 58% dirtier than most of the websites that they checked. But what it will do is give you a list of things to do next, and how you could start making your website a bit more sustainable.
And I think the other thing on that is to just the only way to have a fully green and fully accessible website is for it to be a white piece of paper with just black text on. None of us would sell any tickets if that's all we did. So you're never going to get a completely carbon neutral website, but it's about just thinking through whether everything that you're doing is necessary and where it can be reduced and improved. Because it's cinema, we do need trailers.
Yes, yeah. Has anyone got any sort of questions about that at the moment? No, perfect. Stuart, you are in a bit of a different venue. Is it 200 years old?
It's almost 200 years old,
amazing.
yeah.
So how do you go about thinking about climate and sustainability and the environment in that space?
Yeah, it can be difficult. It's quite drafty in some places. There are a couple of people from Broadway who have been in the building as well. Offices can be really cold or they can be really hot. And we've had to go on a journey of kind of triaging a lot of the work that we do to kind of lower our emissions. So just before a big refurb we did in 2019, we had an audit done of the venue where an agency came in and kind of gave us a huge list of things that we could do to save money and how much they would cost to implement, how long they would take to start paying for themselves, and we kind of had to go through that with a bit of a fine-tooth comb. So there are big things you can do, and it's always helpful to have some capital funding from funders out there like Arts Council, really helpful for things like that. But then there are smaller things like changing all the lights to LEDs that we did, and then we can carry on, we continue to do so. The big thing that the Arts Council helped us do was a kind of like a heat extraction or removal process where all the hot air that's produced in the projection rooms or in the server rooms or in the kitchen, that all gets sucked out and dumped into the foyer to keep the place warm for customers. And that was around a £15,000 to £20,000 investment, and it starts paying for itself after a couple of years. So we did decide to put a bit of money into that as well. Just like most independent cinemas or any business really, we have an environmental strategy and a mission to kind of bring our emissions down. And in terms of how we're trying to communicate that with the audience, it can be really difficult, and it can be one of the first things to go when you're working in such a tight team with only a couple of people on there. So what we've tried to do is try to find campaigns that bring in lots of different elements of the business. So one of the examples I was going to use was pre-COVID, we did a meat-free month in January, and that was a really good vehicle for explaining what our overarching environmental strategy is and was. And it engaged with lots of younger audiences. The younger audiences were extremely keen on it. We didn't lose out in terms of money on our cafe bar. We actually made more money, and actually it retained those younger audiences as well. I think there's a lot of expectation for the young audiences. Just expect that you are an environmentally sound organisation because you're independent. So it's good to find those little moments where you can really shout about it. I don't think we've done it enough. We certainly need to improve that. You know, that taking the heat and dumping it in the foyer is actually quite interesting, I suppose. But we haven't really talked about it to the audience at all, and they'll probably be quite interested in that. So certainly it's an ongoing challenge to try and get it turn it into something tangible that the audience would be excited by and will engage with, and will go, you know what, I want to stay loyal to that brand.
Mm-hmm. And I suppose conversely, Carmen, your venue was built with sustainability in mind.
Yes,
is that right?
That was already kind of 6-7 years ago, which we've really moved on from now, and I would do things very, very differently. We've had enormous problems with our ground source heat pump, so much so that I probably have to rip it out and replace it. And that's a hugely expensive piece of kit. There's not a lot of experience in the UK yet building that, so I don't know that you contract out the building of your venue, who subcontract out all these really important issues, and it was not done properly. So now I would go very differently about that.
So, like you say, over the past sort of 6-7 years, you've been on a climate journey and a journey of sustainability.
Absolutely, yes. So I suppose our bar started higher, having a living roof and having ground source heat pump and having sort of natural flow air conditioning. But yeah, we're still on that journey. Different from other cinemas, perhaps we are not a brick building without any windows. We've got windows glazing all around. It's very light, like here. We've got a huge garden. We've got a living roof. However, people don't really read that as an environmentally friendly building. We're much more like a contemporary art gallery than a kind of health food cafe where everything screams, recycle and all of that. So we have to work really hard to put the message out about all the actions and decisions we take.
How do you find your audience responds to those messages?
Very positive, yeah. But of course we also have to find space in between all the other messaging. We've got a very busy film programme, which is our core business. So amongst that we have to kind of book a slot with marketing. Can we please get this in? We've just won a Green Award, a big screen Green Award last week. So those things are really helpful. That's something that marketing, as you say, something tangible that marketing can then put a picture out, and that gives a lot of cheers and likes. And then when we have bees on our roof, it's a lot. I mean, way above any sort of film that's coming.
Oh, that's amazing.
So, yeah.
So what kind of things have you been doing recently that you could kind of talk about in your?
So I thought I used this space to talk about two things. One of our jobs was to talk about comms. So I talk about a few things that we do communication-wise, and the other one was a discussion the three of us had, which is how do you get onto this proper sustainability journey. So I'll give a few tips about that. So we send out a sustainability newsletter every quarter. So I've got a sustainability manager, which is really fantastic. It was under my kind of a heading at first, and very quickly it became too much. I completely understand that not everybody can afford it, but the thing that a lot of us do have is friends and volunteers. And we've just worked very closely. We've mentored a cinema in the Netherlands, and she works mainly with volunteers. And then she put a call out to see if there's anybody interested in supporting this sustainability journey, as I call it. And she now has a team of 4 who are very, very keen to work on it and do lots of research and collect lots of data, which is very time consuming. It's not particularly difficult. You have most of the information in your building already. Every team has got lots of information, so it's about gathering that and putting it in a report. So quarterly newsletter, we run travel survey every year, we run a waste survey every year, so we then communicate that to the public. So again, it's something tangible that we have with a nice result. 82% of our waste is recycled, so that sounds quite good. We involve the public a lot into tests that we do. So we changed from paper hand towels to air hand dryers, and we put it out there for people, asking people for their feedback. And then when people have had the opportunity, actually nobody gave feedback, so that was a very easy transition. Hurrah! But also what we've done was we took all our still water out of sales, so we only have tap water. So much so that when we brought in still water for a particular event, that we got some Facebook criticism about it. So again, that was quite good. Our sustainability strategy is partly based on the Sustainable Development Goals from the UN, and one of them is about sustainable communities. So it's something that came up earlier as well as, of course, cost of living and our sort of wider responsibility to the community. So we now do 50% Tuesdays. It's only been running for 5 weeks. It was an incredible sort of line up. So the first week, not many people knew about it. Second, a few more. And I thought, right, this is going to go up and up. And I kind of imagined that every Tuesday, every next Tuesday would be completely sold out. Actually, last week did really poorly. I have no idea why that is, but it's there. So we also do. We have a restaurant as well. So we're doing offers for all kids to eat for free now. We've linked 2 or 3 courses for a set price. So really to try and engage the public more. And actually that has had a fantastic result. People now eat 2 courses, much more than they did before. They used to come just for 1. So it's keeping people engaged in that way. The harder hitting environmental documentaries remain very, very difficult to sell. We engaged in the Green Film Festival recently, and we screened a very interesting film called Forest for the Trees. I don't know if anybody booked it, but that only had 17 punters. And we feel that people engage much more if we do something positive. So a film like 2040, Biggest Little Farm, Woman at War, Hit the Road, they bring in lots of people. Anything that already has a kind of like, kind of a greyer, or kind of a dark cloud sky above it. It's really difficult. At the moment I'm screening a lovely film called The Nettle Dress, and I've done 2 sellouts of that already. If anybody's interested in learning about that, I can share that information. So quickly on the sustainability journey, there are really 3 steps. The first one is understanding your carbon footprint, and the organisation that I think a lot of you will be at least aware of is Julie's Bicycle. They've got everything on the website in terms of how to go about it. So it's understanding your carbon footprint. They just tell you how to do that, what all your outputs are, your travel, your supply, your procurement. The next step is to write policy and strategy. And again, you don't have to start that from scratch. There are loads of examples out there. Home has got a fantastic policy, absolutely brilliant.
I didn't write it.
Even so, you can take credit for it.
And you can't find ours.
Can't find yours.
No, keep it going.
Curzon has got a very good one. There are lots of theatres who've got very good ones. It's kind of very set, so all you have to do is kind of fill it in. Then the most challenging part is the action plan. So we've got an action plan, and that's we're kind of struggling, I suppose, to be honest, because that's where everybody has to kind of push more, and everybody's got their core responsibility. Every manager's got their core responsibility, and to then get that engagement to just push things a little bit forward further, do a little bit more research, make that change that has the effect we want and where we want to go. That's kind of where we are.
Perfect.
But we're also looking at small steps, so people need to feel that they can achieve. And one thing I'd like to say is working in this area of sustainability can be quite depressing. We've had sort of what is it called? There is a phrase for it. I've forgotten it. Anyway, there is a kind of a recognised sustainability depression, and we've suffered from that. And it's really looking at what we can do rather than the end is nigh, and just small steps. And a lot of people are doing a lot of research and are working towards that bigger picture. And we can't change the world as such, but we can make small changes. And if we all make small changes, then hopefully we can live on for many years to come.
Excellent, thank you. One of the questions I was going to ask before we go to any questions from the audience is, how much is it front and centre of your communication with your audiences about what you're doing in terms of climate, and how much do you think it needs to be? I don't know if anyone wants to jump in.
Sure.
Go on.
It is quite a focus for homes, external communications. I was saying to Stuart earlier that it's going to sound so cynical. It helps that we have a specific sponsor that sponsors our sustainability communications. And I think that's really important to be transparent about that, because home is not just a cinema, it's a theatre, it's got restaurants, it's got an art gallery. We have a relatively large marketing team for an arts venue, but it's still quite small for the amount of priorities. It would be difficult for us to continue to feed that in all the time with other priorities and targets around finance and audiences. But having a sponsor, and I'm saying that because maybe other people can be sponsored for their sustainable communications, has really helped us keep that message.
Is that a sponsor specifically for?
Yeah.
Oh right.
Yeah.
Who is it? What kind of company? Well, what
I
kind
asked
of
the same
company?
thing.
They're a company called Shire Leasing, which I have looked them up. They are, it's a Manchester-based, quite corporate company. And actually, sadly, they're withdrawing their funding from the new year. But the point is that it has helped us, make sure we've sent out a newsletter. We do a team brief every week that goes out to all of our staff and volunteers. And as part of that is a sustainable update of what we've been doing and what we're doing next. Some of the events maybe that are.
So every week you've got a sustainable update
in the team brief. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I need to up my game.
Doesn't go to audiences, that one. But yeah, so for home it is important, but it is also really embedded within the ethos. Was also a new building. We also have bees on the roof, which are very popular. I concur. So yeah, it is part of the.
We used to have bees.
I was going to say, have you got bees?
No, we used to have bees on the roof. We did. What happened? I don't have to ask you on that. It was before my time of being at Broadway.
I actually don't know what happened to the bees.
They might still be there.
This feels like a scandal.
But there's a real buzz around the place. Yes. Anyway, this is why at Broadway we have to find these moments. It is front and centre internally of all our planning, and certainly when we put our funding applications together, it is front and centre, and we have reduced our carbon emissions by around 35%, which is a great testament to the ops team that typically work internally on it. And we do bring it to our quarterly staff meeting. We give an update with lots of graphs around how we're doing on that side. But as I said, for the audience, it's just those moments that we pick. Like we have an Arts Council funded NPO. We're an NPO as well, and it's called Near Now, and they're doing a fellowship around waste plastics and recycling waste plastics. And sometimes that stuff can seem slightly disparate from what marketing do, promoting the programme. What I've said to them is, can we do something in a bar where you create, tumblers out of recycled plastic? Because that will give me a moment to talk about everything that we're doing, even if we put QR codes on the tumblers and people can find out more about it, which they're looking to do using waste plastics from the bar. But that's almost slightly chanced upon. So we do need to get better, I think in general, Broadway, to be honest, and this falls on my feet really, at kind of communicating our impact as an organisation, because it is huge. So yeah, it's my fault, is what I'm saying.
Any thoughts, questions?
Yeah, we have some. So the first thing is a comment, not a question, an observation. To be clear, just to say that the website tips that from home are also important for customers' journeys, and no one should wade through 12 steps to find what they need. But a question here is: are there any climate-friendly hosting data solutions for a website? Because most are stored on Google or Amazon servers, which are not green at all.
Well, Google actually claim to be carbon neutral, and they want to be carbon zero by 2030. Make of that what you will. I don't think there is an easy answer to that, but maybe other people have other experience. But all data and all websites are hosted in a very similar way. It's not an area I know a huge amount about, but like I said, Google think they are carbon neutral. Maybe they are.
Okay, thank you. I think this is another one for you, which is what kind of reductions did the web and digital audit produce?
So that's tricky to answer because I wasn't here when we did the initial testing, but I know that we've reduced the number of pages by about 30, I think it's 35% page reduction. So the number of pages that we did have, for example, to get to the, I can't think of an example of a film season, was sort of buried over here, and we've brought everything forward. And lost 35% of pages that were on the site. So I don't know what reduction that would have had, but it was substantial.
Should I keep going?
Yeah, I've got a list of green website hosts, which I'll post on Twitter after this. But there are a few, but they're just more expensive than
Thanks for
hosting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fancy that. Do you feel you could communicate sustainability more, but worry you might bore audiences? Can you create sustainability ambassadors amongst your audience?
Yes. No, I do think sometimes that like the heat thing about dumping the heat in the foyer. Technically, like if that's an engineering thing, it can get slightly boring. But what we've done at Broadway recently, and this isn't connected to environmental sustainability, but actually would probably work as well, is that we've actually started getting a lot of our cafe bar staff involved on our social media channels, where they go out and record little videos from around. We still have editorial control, they can't just do anything on those channels, but they go out and they film and they edit, and they're paid for it as well. And they do some really great videos for their age group, which is what our Instagram feed is targeted at. And we've seen huge engagement. And from the conversations we were having earlier, I think I could easily get those guys to do something around what we do in terms of environmental sustainability in the bar, like no longer using polycarbonate cups and things like that. They would find a way of making it interesting where I would probably not, and they'd make it a lot more engaging and funny. And it's got to be really authentic, so it's coming from younger people as well. That seems to work.
It sounds like, in terms of the internal engagement with this, everyone's really kind of strong on it in terms of internally in your venues. How have you found the internal comms? Has it been difficult to engage people and get people behind it, or is it something that's always just been embedded from the beginning?
Well, I think you probably have this as well. You both have it. We do have. They need to kind of get back up and running again. But pre-COVID, we did have a green team that was with lots of different members of staff across it. I think Melly over there was on it when she worked at Broadway. Hello, Melly. So it has been embedded by that group, and it needs to do more as well. But yeah, that's been a useful vehicle. They were given the kind of action plan that we put together, and that was a good vehicle for communicating.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit twofold at home. So every new member of staff at home is given carbon literacy training. It's not optional. It's part of the induction. So I think that really helps to bring people on board. It's worth saying, if people haven't done that training, it is really good and it is really positive. And I think that's also the key. Like Carmen had said, it's like not focusing on the end of the world, but more the what can we do to help. And I think everyone in the office having that understanding and just having done the same training, the conversations are a bit easier to start with people.
Yeah, we also do a sort of sustainability training, and that always ends up with a kind of an open call of ideas that people have, how we can make changes, and they're often fresh ideas, things that we've not thought of ourselves.
One of the largest footprints at our venue is audience travel. How do comms teams raise awareness of this?
Write letters to the Secretary of State is what our CEO did, because the trains don't run in Manchester.
So we have a travel page where we go from please walk, please use a bicycle. So we have a bicycle parking stand with CCTV and cover. We put all the bus routes and so where you can book tickets. We've got on box office. We've got live train times, and then we state if you do have to use a car, and of course everybody who comes from the village has to use a car. There's no way back to your village after 6 o'clock. So yeah, we try to sort of encourage people that way. I have to say, in the last 6 years that we've been open, we now have a lot of electric bikes. So people. I come with families actually with kids on electric bikes, and I think we have about 15 electric bike users, whilst there were none 5 years ago. So that's on the increase.
we have deals in place with some local transport networks, such as the Nottingham Tram company, where they get slightly discounted tickets. But then we also have, we're quite lucky. I mean, this kind of got set up by chance. We had no involvement in it. But there's a trial of electric scooters going on in Nottingham. They're everywhere.
Menace.
Yeah, and actually one of the parking spaces for electric scooters is right outside Broadway, just painted there on the floor, which is really helpful. We didn't ask for it, but obviously saw us as a cultural hub. But we have lots of bike racks and the electric scooter park, and these collaborations with the tram network and things.
You have to use. Sorry, we need a microphone. You have to go through Slido. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, sorry. I've got a bunch of questions here about print. So I'll just sort of. Where do we sit on the debate about printed programmes? How do you find a balance between audience development opportunities and the need for sustainability when it comes to print and print distribution? Has anyone cut print materials completely? Is this a necessary solution to make events more sustainable?
Well, yeah, I'll quickly answer this. Sorry, we do have a monthly brochure, and a lot of our older customers, it was a really important tool for them to find out what was going on. And we were already planning on not getting rid of it, but reducing the print, because it was costing me a lot of money in my marketing budget as well. And then the pandemic happened, so we obviously cut it down completely. And when we've reopened, that gave us an opportunity to, again, talk about environmental responsibility, and we cut it so it's only available in the venue. It's no longer being sent to the members. The members do get it digitally before everybody else. And there has been a little bit of kickback initially, not from many people. And I think people are just now used to it. What we have started to do, and it's started to creep back in slightly, is put it back in local, print a few more to put into libraries and things like that, because the older audiences venture into those spaces a lot more than the younger. But actually, when you look over since 4 years that I started, when I first started, it was 90% of the people were looking at the brochure to find out what was going on. That's now down as like the fifth thing they look at. It's now web, newsletter, social media.
So it has declined. In print, then the optimisation of the website and making sure that the website has a lower carbon footprint is then the next knock-on thing to deal with.
Yeah, and we redeveloped the website in 2019, so we've done a bit of that work.
Interestingly, at home, the only brochure we print is for film. So we don't have a brochure for theatre, and we don't have a brochure for visual arts. We are assessing whether we need to keep that brochure for film. We did a very similar thing. It doesn't go out of our building. It goes to members digitally. But with having spent a lot of money and time on the website, the hope is that can predominantly replace the brochure. But we're just asking our audiences what they want first.
Can I make a very important statement? There are no regulations or guidelines about this, and I think the most important thing in terms of sustainability is your broad awareness and making conscious choices. It's not a race against I'm doing this and I'm doing that. It's really you make your own choices for what works in your venue. There are some companies, including Coca-Cola, actually, interestingly, who are pressing quite hard for regulation. So we've got a standard that we can work towards. So at the moment, it's really difficult. We're all out in this wild forest, and we have to go, okay, this is my path, okay, you go on that path. And, sort of comparing is also difficult. In terms of programme, we have an A5 leaflet that we print weekly. We print 80 at the beginning of the week, and then we add 10 sort of every time as it goes. So box office looks very closely, and we have very little waste on that. But print is very important. Personally, I love print. My daughter has just done a degree in graphic design. I love books too. I like living too. And all the things we are carbon users. So we just have to make our choices where we spend that carbon.
Yes, nothing's all good and all bad, is it? Just different increments.
It's a combination of ways. So there is this idea that we all have a certain amount of carbon that we can spend each year, which is a very interesting idea, I think.
Do you think green initiatives will fall by the wayside as operating costs get higher due to the cost of living? For example, if plastic glasses were cheaper than paper ones?
No, the Arts Council wouldn't fund it, and other major funders, and it's, I think, really important. I think there's a green agenda on every, rightly, there's a green agenda on every funding network that I know that Home applies to. I don't think
it's central to your values as an organisation. Then obviously you have to have those discussions, but I don't think we would compromise on our values as an organisation. I think the audience wouldn't appreciate it either, because they're very invested. As I said, the younger audience especially are really invested in it.
Yeah.
Great. While it should fall to everyone in the organisation to implement positive changes, do you think there should be a specific post to cover this, cost permitting, obviously?
I guess you've got a sustainability manager.
Yeah.
Can you tell them maybe a bit more about this?
So that's somebody who came from the inside, so to speak. She was the administrator, and I then realised that we had a huge amount in common in terms of how important we think the green agenda is. So we then split her role in half. So she's part-time sustainability manager and part-time admin. I think she claws much more towards the sustainability role. There is a lot to do. It's also a lot more fun. So we try to balance that. But really, that has made a huge difference. That's where things really started to happen. So I would say you need absolute commitment if you want to take this journey seriously. You need somebody behind that who pushes it and reminds everybody with every procurement what's the green, what are the green issues here. And she then has got allocated time as well to do further research. Absolutely, yeah.
I think this is specifically for Stuart. Did the tram companies subsidise the reduced cinema ticket price incentive scheme, or do Broadway take the hit?
Oh, that's a good question. That's from yourself, yeah. You know what? I might have to talk to you afterwards because it was before my time, but then I can find that out for you. But I think it was the tram network is, I think, probably run by the council themselves, so that it's in their interest to bring people into the centre of the city. So they don't want to prohibit that, don't want cost being a barrier so much. So it's ourselves and lots of different arts organisations dotted around the city, but I can look into the detail for you. Yeah.
I think this follows on a little bit from what Carmen was just talking about, but how do you choose partnerships that are sustainable? And if you get some sponsors, what sort of measures do you go through to check how green they are?
Yeah, I know we have a check in place, but I don't know quite what the development team's assessment looks like, but it is definitely on a we must check these things checklist. That doesn't necessarily answer that question.
We don't have any sponsors.
We don't have sponsors, but we do. But when we start new relationships, we ask people about their green credentials and what their long-term planning is, and how they foresee their company going forward in the next 20 years. So
I suppose it comes back to as well this idea of values that your organisation has intrinsically, and that you're all. If you know what they are.
You know that you need from a supplier or a sponsor or a partner. It's slightly different. I don't want to overtake the conversation, but we've just become a B corporation, and so when you do that, you go through a series of checks about how environmental you are as an organisation. But then you get a series of questions to ask other partners. So that's a really easy document that I can share, but it allows you to sort of vet other people that you might work with to make sure your values are aligned and you're not greenwashing anything.
And just where we're running low on time.
Probably, yeah.
But we do have a question, which is quite a nice one. If subsidising sustainable practices within your organisation is not possible by fundraising, is it ethical to ask audiences to pay a green levy to raise awareness?
Well, I think you have to different levels of kind of maturity in terms of environmental strategies, but I think possibly if you're actually communicating the impact well enough, and I think for Broadway we're not at that point yet. I wouldn't want to go in there completely cold and start asking it. It's probably 5 to 10 years down the line when we've made it more obviously central to our comms. and you'd have to put that in line with any kind of pricing structure you have, and it may be that you're just increasing audiences anyway because more people believe in your values as an organisation. But yeah, it's a tough one.
I think you'd have to evidence where that money was going. I think it's maybe quite the obvious point, but Home we do have a building levy on our tickets. It was something we've recently introduced because in part because of the cost of living. That's not a green levy, but it's very transparent where that money goes, which pot it sits in, how we spend it. So I guess it would have to be a very similar setup.
It feels very uncomfortable to me. I mean, how can everybody afford a levy? That would kind of contradict other things we do. So I've not really thought about it, but my initial response is, well, that feels all wrong.
That's fair. I think we've got time to squeeze in one more. What do you think?
Sure.
Would you have advice for a community cinema or community cinemas who don't have control over their own venues but want to be greener?
The website.
Okay.
Well, you still, in my opinion, need to have a green policy, a green strategy, and that just works within your situation. So whether you own a building or not, you don't have to, I would imagine that you can change all the lights to LED, and there's still a whole load of things you can do. And if you go to our website and you look at our strategies, and there are so many things you can get on with. And actually, the best thing about learning what your carbon footprint is, that first thing you need to do is just tweak, and from that your carbon footprint is reduced hugely, and also your cost, and that's an immediate win. So the first step is actually fantastic. After that, it gets a little bit more difficult.
I guess it's like focusing on exactly what you can control, and probably if you think and make a list of what those things are, there'd be much more than you would imagine initially.
Yeah.
And that audit that was done for us that I mentioned before, there were very, very small things in there that would cost £50 to implement, but would save X amount over a certain amount of time. So there is like quick wins you can do, and then the bigger ones, if the funding's there, you can implement.
So it's audit, small steps, website.
Bees.
Oh, bees.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's our time, I think. Thank you very much, everybody, for your time and generosity.
I've got some more tips for that.
Thanks very much to the panel. We will be in here if you would like to stay. There's a quick 5-minute comfort break, and then we will be looking at immersive cinema. I have to say that in that way. VR, AR, etc., which will be quite an exciting panel. So please do stay for that. Expanding cinema realities here at 3:15, so 5 minutes.